All right. Hello, everyone. This is Emilio Garcia from the Mangen Studio. Welcome to another episode. I'm really excited to have today here with me, as always, my co host, Miranda Jenkins. And today we are having another episode where we are bringing in some B2B marketing specialists, experts, and professionals to share their journey. And that being the case, Harrison Han is here with me. How are you, Harrison?
I'm doing well. How are you today?
Good, good. Thank you for joining the show. I've been wanting to do this for quite a while. I'm happy that we got some time to talk. And yeah, this is gonna be a very relaxed conversation, Harrison. We try in this show to share some of the insights and some of the trends that are happening on demand generation that are relevant for B2B marketers. And basically, I would like to learn a little bit more about you, what you do at your company, some of the interesting stories and things that happen at your current position, right? Any big wins that you can share, and go from there,
Yeah, I'm excited. Let's get on it.
right? So yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself. How do you got into the marketing industry? What have been your path? Some of the challenges that you have faced along the way.
Yeah, so interesting story there. I actually did not graduate with any kind of business or marketing degree. My degree was actually in architectural design.
Okay.
Yeah, so I graduated with art in architectural design back in 2009, entered the workforce. The workforce wasn't looking particularly good for architects at that time.
Yeah.
Right. So I actually transitioned into graphic, and that's sort of how I began my marketing journey. And then from there, I went through various industries within B2C and B2B, did services, was in the health and wellness industry, was in the hospitality industry, working with distilleries for a while. And then we transitioned into more on the B2B side in the tech sector. And now I'm in the industrial mining. So a lot of different experiences, and it's been quite an interesting journey.
Yeah. So I have so many things to unpack there. One is it is incredible, right? As I don't want to say that I have a big sample, but I know a lot of marketers that we got into the industry, from tangential areas,
Hmm.
from unrelated areas. It's a common thing. The other one that is for me very interesting, I don't know if you agree, that is how we are, blissfully ignorant when we join the job force of the things that are happening, in the country, in the world. Just like you were saying about 2009, I was at the time in Barcelona, recently wed, and I had no idea what was
Right.
happening around us. Something that you learn later. And finally, I have a comment or a question here for you because you have that thing of being able to work both in B2C and B2B world, right? From your experience, so you have experience with the more direct to consumer kind of marketing,
Mhm.
and now in your current role, more of the B2B side. What is for you, what are some of the most striking differences between the roles at those kind of industries?
So I would definitely say on the B2C side, things are a lot more hectic in terms of being able to market effectively and being able to target your audience effectively, simply because there's so many different factors that come into play. Campaigns are always changing based on the industry you're in, based on whether you know, holidays are a big deal. So the cycles are much shorter, they're much quicker. And then you have to be really on top of how you set up your campaign throughout the year. Otherwise you kind of risk, losing out on targeting your audience. Whereas on the B2B side, the sales cycles are typically much longer. You're talking about 6 to 12 month sales cycle. So I don't want to say it's slower necessarily, but it's much more even paced. And the cyclical nature, there's still a cyclical nature, but it's not as rapid as you would find it in B2C. So it's a little calmer. You get to take a little bit more time, think about how you're really setting up your strategies, how you're designing your assets and your content. Um, and, and you can really focus on making impact.
Yeah.
I
I
also
I oh yeah,
the
go
B2C
ahead.
world, and I would 100% agree.
Yeah, B2B is a nice thing to pick piece for sure.
Mm.
I also, I don't know if you agree, guys, but I feel that again, when in hindsight, you can see it that on the B2C side, typically the operation is so large from audience perspective that truly we marketers focus on. If you go back to that traditional format of the 4 Ps, you are heavily squarely focused on promotion. That's pretty much
Mhm.
what's happening, right? So that's why it feels so like fast paced, because you are pretty much on the promotion side of the 4 Ps, and the other Ps are typically out of your control because the organization has a whole department or a different person focused on the other things, right? There's someone squarely focused on the product, for example, and that's out of your scope. So it feels like you are more into, well, what's the next holiday and things like that. And I don't know if that's your case, Arson, but unless you are working again in a B2B organization that in terms of their audience is incredibly big, an IBM or something like that, the marketer has more influence in these other aspects of the function, not just the promotion side.
Mhm.
Maybe not controlling or giving direction on product, but at least
Right.
maybe really understanding how the product features, the benefits influence what you're gonna say on the marketplace. Um, I don't know if
Yeah.
you agree on that.
Yeah, I would definitely say so. So just using my current company as an example, we do have a product management aspect do what we do.
Yeah.
And with this industry specifically, it runs a little bit slower. So there's opportunity for marketing, sales, engineering, to all kind of sit down together and talk about where are we going to go next with these products? How do we want to push it out there? Do we believe the market is big enough for a product like this? So even the strategy development, you can take time and just make sure you're making an impact. You can't take too much time. At the end of
Yeah.
the day, this is the stuff to move forward. But yeah, so it's much more phased out, strategic. The steps to from start to finish is much
Yeah.
clearer and much more coordinated.
Yeah. I think we talked about this in some of our conversations offline, Harrison. Never I never truly had the opportunity to work before starting the agency on the B2C world. But one of the things that allowed me, or at least confirmed for me, that I wanted to focus on B2B is that nature, right? The nature
Mhm.
of, if not evergreen, at least a strategy that lasts for a little bit longer than the next holiday.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Is that if you as a marketer feel more of the thrill of going into more of the promotion side, or for agencies and firms out there that focus
Mhm.
on that, there's a skill set that you need for that, and it's competitive. And this B2B side is also competitive. You said, right? It takes
Yep.
longer, but it cannot take forever.
Right.
You
Exactly.
have to deliver results as well, but definitely feels like a different experience. And other question that I have for you, because I know that you recently changed, right, from at least it's still B2B, but the industry that you work on.
Mhm.
Your take on how evolve or advance or different is working on different industries for B2B. What is your take on that one?
Yeah. So, a little bit of context. So my previous position, I was in the tech sector, and in this position, I'm in the industrial mining sector. Definitely, there are differences in terms of the technology that's used and how much technology is actually leveraged in order to conduct business. The mining sector has been around for a very long time. It's a very old sector, and not much changes in this industry. But whereas in tech, things are changing rapidly.
Yeah.
So if you are not kind of staying up to date on how tech is used, or what the audience kind of likes to see from tech, you have a really good shot of being kind of aged out to a certain degree really quickly in tech. Whereas here in the mining industry, I can breathe. We
Okay.
can take time, we can experiment. Because like I said, it moves a little bit slower, even slower than your typical B2B, brand. So that has been the biggest difference is just the pace of business.
Yeah. Now that forces me to ask you this, because I think that's a valid question. I don't directly have experience with mining, but we have worked with some companies in the manufacturing sector, for
Hmm.
example. And I believe that part of the reason current digital B2B strategies struggle with marketing is not necessarily just because maybe it's an industry that moves at a slower pace than B2B tech, but mostly because most manufacturing companies rely on different go-to-market motions that direct to their buyers, right? They rely heavily on distribution. And that changes how you market because
Hmm.
the impact of what you're doing is gonna be seen not by your direct buyer, but the buyer of the buyer. So the way that you approach is differently. But nonetheless, I have seen this, and I want your take on this one is I believe we are at the stage now where not even as lower paced industries like maybe mining will question the benefits of having some presence on digital, right? We
Hmm.
are not in the, those 10 years, maybe 20 years ago when people were asking, well, what will I get if I go into Google, into social media? I think everyone recognizes now that it's a permanent feature of our
Yeah.
of our marketing landscape. But still, I feel you will find some resistance on the more traditional ways, especially in industries like yours, where I imagine that you have larger deals, complex sales that take very long time, and leadership will question how digital marketing will influence, if any, the
Hmm.
outcome of those activities. So what you have done to kind of like open your way into some experiments?
Right. So I think the key, especially in B2B settings, is to get leadership to understand that marketing is not really a siloed activity. It's a strategic way of sort of reducing obstacles for the sales teams to go in and be effective. So when you present it like that, then you say, actually, what we're really doing is we're putting a message out in front of the people in a much more scalable way and getting them to understand the features and benefits of our products or services and all the sort of upfront awareness type activities you would want. That way you're reducing business development pains on the sales team, right? They're not having to use as much time and energy for business development. Theoretically, marketing should help with that a little bit, right? And then also, playing a real key part in pipeline acceleration. You know, are we able to capture information, capture leads, and so on to the sales team with good notes and good context, so then they can be much more effective and impactful when reaching out to that customer. So it's really about getting them to understand these are not siloed activities. Um, Marketing and sales strategically work together. They're two sides of the same coin. And it's really just getting them to understand that we're playing almost the front part of that pipeline, and then sales team is just taking it.
Yeah, I love that. I definitely agree. Some comments that I have here is I'm an engineer by trade, so physics
Yeah.
is one thing that I appreciate a ton. And I have heard this from vendors like HubSpot, this metaphor that they use for the buying process as a flywheel. And I like it because flywheels, the way that you influence flywheels is either you use more force, right?
Hmm.
You apply more people, apply more effort, or you reduce friction, right? And then
Right.
your impact will increase, your momentum will increase, even if you continue to push at the same pace.
Hmm.
And that momentum keeps itself. You don't have to constantly be pushing the flywheel. So I love that. I think, yeah, I agree with you that marketing works building trust with the buyer. So your sales process flows quicker and easier. And that the impact that you will see is maybe not directly on the attribution, rather on the impact that those deals will have, right? They will close at higher rates, they will close faster, and maybe
Hmm.
for larger opportunities because you're in a better position, right, to command a higher price due
Right.
to the perception of the brand. They have to be backed up, obviously, for good products and good experiences, but still. So I
Absolutely.
love that. One other thing that you made me think about is I think we agree on that, but I still that management will say, well, how do we prove that tangibly, right, with numbers? So what are some of the things that you have tried out to say, look, this is how I can prove or at least guide you into this is the impact that we're having?
Yeah, the ROI question is always a sort of a delicate dance, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't want to give them expectations on ROI that aren't actually repeatable. And you don't want to give them expectations on ROI that isn't necessarily going to accelerate the pipeline, right? So we can talk about getting leads all the time, filling out web forms, but if you're getting contact information, but the asset that they're interacting with is just they're mainly downloading for their own benefit, they have no intention of buying, and this is kind of the where how much quality is a marketing lead really?
Love it.
So we want to be careful about conversations like that, where you're just going to say, well, you know what? I can get you a bunch of leads by running these campaigns. I think it's really trying to get them to understand what engagement with the brand really looks like and being able to prove, okay, before, based on these ads that we're putting out either in social media or how people have been interacting on our website, we can kind of tell the interest hasn't been really there. That's why your sales team has been having a tough time sort of making those sales and getting the customers to move along. But then when you make your changes, you implement different content strategies, maybe you revamp your messaging and you can really see those engagement metrics start to tick up. Then you have kind of some proof saying, hey, actually what we're saying is working. And we can continue to push this message even with our sales team. And then we're going to see further improvements that way. Now, I think that's only part of it, if I'm going to be honest. Yeah. If at the end of the day, leadership will still probably be interested in seeing some sort of dollar amount
Yeah.
or maybe something to equate to a dollar. One of the ways you can actually prove that is to kind of compare, okay, last year, here was our overall revenue, brought in some new services or new products. And then this year, here's the uptick. And we can kind of see in conjunction with marketing activity uptick. That's another way you can compare. But if you have your marketing funnels kind of locked in and you do have your lead capture points really locked in, you can also add in, hey, in conjunction with these two other metrics, we're also seeing an uptick in form fill outs. Maybe it's budgetary request. Maybe it's an uptick in consultation request. And I think it really does require sort of three primary areas of focus. But yeah, so it's hard for me to say there's a singular thing that
Yeah.
really,
And I agree. I think sometimes we marketers are afraid of not being able to prove costs, right? We want to have metrics that prove as much as possible cost, and we should not shy away from correlation. There's nothing wrong with it. Not
Sure.
everything that you would do will have a clear cut cost, but it
Mhm.
will show correlation. And sometimes that's good enough. Technology will evolve to the point that maybe we will be able to get causation some activities that we do, but it's a great start because if not, you are losing yourself from some, data points that will help you to support your case. The other thing that you mentioned that I love is there's quality and quantity, right? There's not all the traffic is the same,
Right.
right? You go and explore where is it coming from, right? What are the pages that they visit? What are their intentions and the time they spend? There's quality on that traffic. There's quality on leads, right? As you were saying, it's not the same that you're offering a piece of content that is very generic and people sharing, generic emails that they use for never hear of you again, right?
Yeah.
Their extra Gmail account. And
Yeah.
definitely there's quality and opportunities and revenue, right? If you get revenue for the wrong reasons, you will get clients that will not stay with you, that will not be the best, that will not be as profitable. So there's definitely, even in dollars, there's quality,
Yeah.
right? So I think we have to, as you said, strike a balance between, yes, we want to prove quantity. We want to see those numbers going up. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we are bringing in quality. If not, we're just pushing the problem down the road on the funnel.
Exactly. And interestingly enough, for me, the biggest sort of perpetrators is I see this a lot with marketing agencies, actually. The
Yeah.
marketing agencies tend to put out a lot of campaigns talking about, hey, here are 5 ways you can improve your social media metrics, or all these different kind of guidebooks and handbooks. And I'm always on there downloading all of these things and with zero intention of really reaching out, to the marketing agencies for services. Right. So yeah, we want to be very careful about leveraging vanity metrics almost.
Yeah.
as a way to prove ROI.
Yeah, I agree. Every industry, and obviously, especially marketing agencies, will take a tactic and take it to the ground. Right? Is that
Yes.
make it super bland, and we have to be careful with the intention of it. Even how you define marketing qualified leads, right? That really
Mhm.
matches what sales is expecting. Because if you're just assigning points to actions that
Right.
yes, this account is engaged, but clearly doesn't have intent yet. Because if they had
Mhm.
intent, they would have just reached out, and they are
Right.
not, right? So gotta be careful on those, and that's why I mentioned that quality aspect. For us as marketing agencies, that's a responsibility. We discuss this all the time about telling clients, not just look at, for example, in the case of Google Ads, that's a great example.
Mhm.
Don't look at the keywords and the cost per click only. Look at the queries.
Right.
Is what people actually typing in their search engines is what you want,
Mhm.
is what you care for. Because if the answer is no, it doesn't matter how inexpensive it is, right? It doesn't matter that you're getting a very low cost. Even if you get leads out of that, they will
Right.
not transform. They will not become businesses, new business. I agree with that. Is super important. I want to touch on something else, Harrison, that you mentioned before. I tell people that if, for in a completely non-related example, if you want to know what's good for your health, look at the questionnaire from insurance companies, right? Because
Yeah.
they cannot get it wrong. If whatever you think about the medical body in the world, right, about what they promote or not promote,
Right.
what your insurance company asks you about your
Mhm.
habits, it's a great indicator of what's good for your health. Because
Yeah.
they are charging that premium based on those answers.
Right.
So a similar thing is that I feel that for us, if you want to look how intertwined marketing and sales are or should be, look at the line items of a financial state for a corporation.
Mhm.
There's no marketing spend or expense and sales expense. Is marketing and sales
Right.
expense, right?
Exactly.
For CFOs, one or the other are contributing to the same thing, which is bringing up revenue. The only
Mhm.
difference only is what you're describing, right? Sales for me is more of that power source, right? You add humans to the effort to cover more area, and marketing is either an amplifier of their work or a source of friction reduction
Yeah.
for the effort. But they go together. So sales and marketing alignment, therefore, is something really, really important, or I think something that most marketers, especially in B2B, struggle with. What is your
Absolutely.
take on that? How were you, what have you experienced? How you have overcome maybe some of the misalignments?
Mhm. So I think the biggest experience for me is really, so I have had experience where marketing and sales have been almost completely separate, right? And that's really tough because, as if that's the situation, I as a marketer don't really have insight into what are the products or services that are kind of in demand with the customers, right? Are you starting to see a shift? I also think it reduces visibility into customer pain points, which, typically we talk about pain points as sort of a sales kind of a thing where sales need to go, they need to identify what the customer pain points are, in order to be able to address it and make a sale. But, those same pain points are kind of what you need to be speaking through in your marketing content as well. So in my last position, yes, there was kind of a sort of a division between the two. And I think it was mainly driven by there wasn't that one individual at the top that was sort of driving the unification between the two.
Yeah.
Whereas at Polydeck, the company I'm in right now, we actually just recently were able to align the visions of sales and marketing.
Mhm.
Um, and it's been quite interesting because now the sales team will lean heavily on us for things like designing presentations for their conversations that they're having with sales or with potential customers, or if they're giving a talk somewhere or at trade shows, especially. And that alignment really helps not only land the sale, create that engagement, but it also actually helps plan out campaigns for marketing as well.
Yeah.
You know, we're doing a big push for what's called a SAG mill deck. And I'm working with a couple of guys, sales members on the mining team with that. And we're going to be doing a big ABM push to get into mining companies leading up to this trade show that we have in September, where all the mining customers will be. So it really helps flesh out really holistic campaign where you're starting digitally probably, but then transitioning into in-person events. And efforts like that, I think, really help drive the engagement, really help drive sales, really helps the sales team out a lot in getting their message across to the customers.
Yeah, love it. I strongly believe that most of the opportunities for organizations where, marketing and sales are not working together are tied to their incentives, right? I strongly believe that societies, right, and without going philosophical here, but that incentives drive behavior. And so what I've seen is that even if you have an organization where the marketing head and the sales head are different persons, as long as you have some common metrics, things that you strive for, they are measured and compensated for to some extent. I'm not saying that you have to make commissions for salespeople. The other thing that I want to really make clear, I tell people all the time, is marketing is not sales. It's a different function. It's a different activity. But if, for example, your core metric is, what we were saying, whatever you could call marketing qualified leads,
Yeah.
and you toggle with that definition without feedback from sales, then you game the system, right? Because it's a metric that can be disconnected from the impact that you will have on the business. And for sales, obviously, it's very hard to get a metric that is not revenue, as you said, just the dollars.
Right.
But as long as you have a way of connecting those incentives, I think things like what you're describing will happen. Obviously, I think this is another question that I have for you. You want to be mindful of the balance that you do between the short term and the long term, which is, I think, where marketing and sales really differentiate themselves, right? Some of the more things are apart from sales are the work that sales marketing does for building the brand, which has impact not in weeks or even months, maybe years. And so you have to balance those activities in the short term versus the ones on the long term. What is your take on that, right? On how do you strike a balance on that, or even on activities like, how much do we focus on performance or demand capture versus how much do we performance on brand awareness and, or demand creation? Have you find the way to balance out those activities?
Oh man, that is a tough question because when you're in it, it's kind of hectic and you just sort of feel like you have to do everything at the same time all the
Yeah.
time. I think a lot of it really I don't really know how well this take is going to be taken, but I think
Hey,
it
we
really
love
has.
controversy.
Yeah. So I think your content strategy actually will drive a lot of
Mm.
your content development strategy will actually drive, because there are definitely certain types of content that work as bringing in awareness on an ongoing basis, right, for the brand. But then you also have to think about the content that helps you drive sort of that last conversion into pipeline acceleration, which typically looks a little different, right? You're talking about content that's a little different with people who maybe are aware of your product, but not sure if they can trust you as a company yet.
Yeah.
Right. So I think really prioritizing, number one, which stage of business are you in? If you're just starting out, then you probably do need to build a lot of brand awareness, and you're probably going to prioritize a lot of brand awareness content. Right. I think for Polydeck specifically, we're not in the awareness stage. We're not having to do tons and tons of work bringing about awareness to our product, but we are having to do a lot of work convincing them that our products will outperform competitors and that we're a company that's trustworthy. So
Yeah.
just based on that phase of the business, a lot of the content production is focused on things like case studies, development of value propositions, and really advertising the benefits of leveraging Polydeck as a branded partner versus tons of time being put toward, awareness type of content. They're like, oh, we have this type of product, or we have this type of service. And it
Yeah.
allows us, and it frees us some time to focus more on campaigns for specific things. Like if, let's say we have a product that's not performing as well and we want to be able to push that a little bit more. So that's the phase of your business is going to be an aspect. And I also think the resources you have available to you is going to be another,
Yeah.
a huge aspect. I'm lucky enough to be a part of a team here, but I know plenty of marketers who are just that one man, one woman department,
Yeah.
So how do you prioritize that? Right. So I think there's a balance that needs to be struck between the phase of business, like the phase of life your brand is in,
Mm-hmm.
and then the resources you have available to you. And then you just sort of have to identify, okay, what area do I need to place focus on in order to make the most amount of, and it's more of that foot wide, mile deep approach. Right.
Yeah. There's a great insight that you mentioned there that, yeah, you have to be really knowledgeable about the level of awareness of your own audience for the company that you work for, right? Because there are industries and products and services where a ton of the work is even just making people aware of the problem. They might just experiencing the symptoms. And or they're aware of the problem, but not really aware of potential solutions. And you have to invest heavily on that, right? Especially when you're
Right.
replacing something. But in more mature industries where the buyers really understand the problem and even understand the solutions, then you have to work hard on what makes you different, what makes you
Right.
trustworthy, rather than re-explaining the problem itself.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's a great insight there, Harrison. So yeah, I don't have more questions. I think you have shared with us great insights. I do, however, have some questions for you, quick,
Yeah.
things that you can tell us. So
Sure.
if you had a magic wand to change anything on your current company in terms of what you do, what it would be?
Oh, our tech stack, 1,000%.
Your size.
Yeah. So, so yeah, that's an easy answer. Well, if your company has been around for a while, so our company has been around since the 1970s. Typically what happens is as time progresses, it's one Band-Aid solution after another Band-Aid solution in terms of making things work and making your processes work. And then over time, you kind of have like a bloated, convoluted system that's inefficient, right? And you're doing more work to make the technology work versus having the technology work for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that, if I could just immediately point at something, I'd say fix that, and that would solve a lot of issues, I think.
Well, that's a tough cookie for IT in general, right?
It is.
Changing
It
those
is.
tech stacks. They
Yep.
have so many
Exactly.
requests, especially from
Absolutely.
us marketers. All right. And the last one, the final one is if you had any advice for a younger self, a younger Harrison starting out in what you do now, what advice that will be?
I would say always kind of audit yourself from time to time. And what I really mean by that is really ask yourself the question, do I actually know what I'm talking about? Right. And then just, and not in a negative way, right? Not in a put yourself down kind of a way, but just sort of opening up the possibility, hey, there may be things I don't know that I'm not aware. And especially in a changing landscape like marketing, I think it's really important that you do that on a consistent basis, even if it's just to stay on top of tactics or strategies or tools that are out there.
Yeah.
But also just your insight and perspective, and just always making sure that's changing and because consumer perspectives are always changing as well too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would probably say, hey, you probably got that one wrong, rethink it, right? And just ask yourself the question, all right, what do I know?
Yeah.
And just be
I
open to possibility.
I recently heard of, I think it was Jeff Bezos that commented that, most of us, now that you're saying, what's changing, most of us will focus on, how this change will impact what I do, right? And he challenged people to think about, it's better to focus on the things that will not change,
Mhm.
right? So you don't go with the waves of, oh, now we have this new shiny thing, right? Like I'm thinking right now about AI, for example, right? If
Right.
challenges, whatever you, as you said, is how much do I know? Like if his thinking was, for example, in 10 years, people will not want to buy more expensive stuff that they want, and they will not want to take more time that they should, right? Will
Mhm.
want experience, speedy experiences. And so as long as we provide, fast experiences on purchasing and lower prices, we will be okay. Right.
Right.
And so I love that idea of how I translate it is that we really need to nail down our fundamentals. And I don't know if it happens to you, Harrison, again, coming not from marketing. One of the things that I find that we struggle with is that because we do mostly digital marketing, we focus a ton on the digital aspect of it and
Right.
not the human aspect of it, it's the psychological part of it. Saying, well, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It's now with AI, we are dealing with humans and we have our, psychological traits and our biases. And if we understand those fundamentals, the medium will change, but we still will be dealing with the core principle of influencing humans.
Right, right. It's not giving a certain. It's not worrying about giving a certain perception. It's really just about understanding perspectives, right?
Yes.
And I think that's really the fundamental key to marketing success.
This has been fantastic, Harrison. One last thing that I want to say, if, people want to connect with you, learn more about you and just, engage, what would be a good place to reach out and connect with you?
Come find me on LinkedIn.
All
It's
right.
always going to be the best place.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome. So there you go, listeners, right? If you want to connect with Harrison, go to LinkedIn and look for him. And we will put some notes there and ways to find you and some of the insight that you have shared. I just have to say thank you. And I hope this is not the last time that we do something like this in the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me on. It's been a great time. So
Thank you,
really
man.
appreciate it.
Bye bye.
All right.